Good day, everyone. This is Betty Murray, and today we're going to talk about the top 3 mistakes functional medicine practitioners make that keep them stuck in conventional practice. More importantly, we're going to show you how to avoid these costly mistakes, and we're going to give you easy-to-follow practical strategies you can use right away and take these steps towards creating your perfect practice with ease. We are going to count down from 3 to 1, so we're going to go backwards, so you're going to want to listen to the whole thing all the way to the end. But before I get started, I have a few questions. Have you been taking functional medicine or integrative medicine training, but come Monday morning after you get home from the seminars, you go right back into the same old practice, doing the same old thing? When you walk in the exam room, you just wish you could spend just a few more minutes with that client or patient, getting to the root cause of their issues and give them everything you just learned, but you hold back. I would believe that many of you probably are in some form or fashion feeling that way. All of the information you learn at whatever training you're going to is absolutely amazing. And the important part is that you're able to actually implement those things that you've learned and be able to put them forward so you can actually take your practice to the perfect way you'd like to see your practice run. And these 3 tips are going to be the biggest thing that can help change and create a new life for you and your practice. So today we're in an unprecedented world. In all seriousness, there's a significant problem in medicine and health. 57% of doctors today say they would choose to do something different, and medical school applications are down, especially in primary care roles, which are the most important linchpin to our medical system. For many of our patients and many of our practitioners, bureaucracy, red tape, insurance companies all run the medical practices, and they actually, in some cases, really run medicine. The doctor, chiropractor, naturopath, nutritionist, and allied health professional in the conventional medicine world has become trapped and strapped to a computer, where getting medical records right for reimbursement or regulatory purposes is more important than treating the patient or client. And in many cases, healthcare workers spend more time at paperwork than actually in the room helping patients. Doctors and allied health professionals coming to the realization that they were taught in conventional medicine many things that may very well be a big part of the problem. And for many practicing in the conventional model, it now feels like they're breaking the Hippocratic Oath to go back into that model and work within that paradigm. And depending on who you read, whether it's NIH or CDC, 87 to 95% of all chronic disease that we are dealing with in the United States, like cancer, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, are diet and lifestyle related. And functional medicine and integrative medicine is the answer to those underlying problems. Big Pharma has a stranglehold on medical education and practice, essentially taking the power to diagnose and treat, and they can control the collective consciousness of the American public. Medical errors, drug interactions, and medication-related deaths combined are the 4th leading cause of death in the United States. And those numbers are not changing as the hospital systems and the medical practices become a feeding ground of 10-minute visits. And we know that there's positive things, healthy things, easy to take things, herbs that can take over and often help treat many of these symptoms, but they aren't offered inside the exam room. At an unprecedented numbers, the population is very wary of medicine, and they're looking for answers. Over the last 10 years, the number of primary care visits has actually dropped in the United States. First time in history, and many of those visits were actually rerouted to alternative practitioners, people like chiropractors, naturopaths, nutritionists, and those market shares for those type of practitioners has grown. However, the number of people looking for alternatives, in fact, is driving the functional medicine movement, so the public is looking for you. And actually, there's not enough functional medicine practitioners in any background to actually feed that need. And we know you're one of those practitioners who want to be part of the movement to reform healthcare and bring diet and lifestyle and natural treatments to the first line of medicine, not the last resort. But what happens when you try and step out of that conventional model? You're met with animosity, hostility, quite possibly anger by your peers and your professional organizations. Today, healthcare workers in all fields are in the highest demand. However, healthcare and doctors of all modalities are the most dissatisfied. In my experience, functional medicine doctors and allied health professionals who are stuck in that conventional model are most deeply injured by living and working in that model. So first, I'd like to ask your permission to just give a few minutes so we can talk about who we are, so you know who's on the call and why you might actually want to listen to us. So I'm going to start out and tell you a little bit about me. So my name is Betty Murray. I am a certified nutritionist and a functional medicine practitioner with the Institute for Functional Medicine. And I came to functional medicine through a very circuitous route. I actually spent quite a few years in corporate America in different fields, both management, sales, marketing, and for the last 11 years before changing careers in information systems. And I had been diagnosed with colitis. And at the time of diagnosis, of course, it was shocking. I had always lived a very, very healthy lifestyle, and to be told that I had some condition that was a lifelong condition and that my only option were some pretty hardy, hefty drugs and biological drugs was not something I was interested in taking. And at the time I asked, could there be something I could change in my diet and lifestyle, particularly what I'm eating, to improve the outcome? And I was met with actually some sarcasm and told that there was nothing in the literature that said that diet and lifestyle had anything to do with colitis, and that I could do nothing with my diet. And so that defied logic for me. So that sent me on my own personal journey to try and figure out how to at least heal myself with food, and that is what brought me to nutrition. And so, fast forward several years later, I met my business partner, and we'll talk about our business a little bit in the future, but we started Living Well Dallas, and I went into private practice after several years of being back into school while straddling corporate America. And my private practice now focuses really on functional medicine-based nutrition. I obviously don't treat nor diagnose as a nutritionist, but I have spent years in training with functional medicine and many other organizations like Seeking Health and a lot of the supplement companies that put on fantastic education throughout the year. And my passion really is the biochemistry and really complex health problems. When I do see people with autoimmune digestive disorders, complex genetics and epigenetic modulation with diet and lifestyle. Prior to entering this field, like I said, I spent 15 years in corporate America on all sides, so I was lucky enough to come into this environment with a lot of business knowledge. I had ran companies and stores, and so I really, really had that experience. I've also started the Dallas, North Texas area Functional Medicine Association of North Texas, which is a 501c6 nonprofit that has a friendly friendship with IFM. And we are a local group that brings trainers to the North Texas area, and we often bring people who are trainers for the Institute for Functional Medicine to bring local education. So that is a huge passion of mine, to make sure that we can build functional medicine community. And then I'm also on the board of directors for the Gluten Intolerance Group of Greater Dallas. So I've spent a lot of time in this arena, and I'm super excited to be able to share my experiences with you, both on the business side and on the functional medicine side. And so I want you to meet my happy business partner, Ms. Jenny Bair.
Hello, everybody. So I'm excited to tell you a little bit about my background. From the very beginning, I love people. I've always been interested in how they tick, what they think, what they do, why they do what they don't, or why they're not doing what they're supposed to do. I love people, and I love teaching. So I can remember my mom would knock on my bedroom door. I'd be in there for hours, and she'd say, "What are you doing in there, Jenny?" And I'm like, "Leave me alone. I'm teaching my class." And I'd have boxes overturned, and I'd have a pointer, and I'd be talking my imaginary classroom. And so I was really going down the teaching path. And so I started off in special ed, actually, and then I switched over to psychology. And I was 3 classes short of my psychology degree. And I met someone, a friend of mine, and she said, "You know what, you would be so awesome at this career education thing. We're actually bringing the AIDS quilt." And I said, "Really? That's so interesting, because my grandfather had actually had a heart surgery and had to have a blood transfusion before the blood was tested in 1982, so he had a surgery in 1981, and he had full-blown AIDS. And I watched that whole experience with my family and with him and how people treated him, and so I was on board when she said, "AIDS quilt, I'm there." So I went And I started volunteering, and that's when my heart changed. I was like, oh my gosh, health education has everything I want. It has programs, it has teaching, it has people, and it's got a lot of psychology. So I changed my degree to health education. So I do not teach PE. I actually teach people how to change whatever behavior that is they're looking to change. So it goes across all areas of wellness, and I do program planning and marketing and business planning and all kinds of fun stuff in health ed. So I have had the good fortune of opening a wonderful hospital as my first job right out of the chute. But I actually started that job, I should back up and say, that I was an admin. I was what we call our office goddess for one of the doctors. It was an OB-GYN. And so I actually ran the office for her and her nurse practitioner and several of the nurses. So it was a very busy practice. We had probably up to 80, anywhere between 80 and 120 patients a day. And so, as you guys know, if there's a birth, the whole schedule changes. So Betty and I have a love for making sure that your admin, your office goddesses are treated with kindness and a lot of respect. And I know that as well because I did that job, and it's one of the hardest jobs to do. So then I moved on from office goddess to opening the hospital, and I got the luxury of being on 11 different committees. And so I've used every experience that I had at this boutique hospital, birthing hospital in Austin. I've used everything that I've learned there throughout my entire career, and I'm so grateful for that. And then I was also a healthcare consultant with the government. So we had funding from several different places, NIH, CDC, Texas Department of Health, and I got to study before he passed away. Actually, I'm very lucky with Dr. Oscar Meek, who developed open organizations. So I learned a lot about consulting and open organizations and how to be a transparent leader and build your people up, and how to do action research to make sure that if you start implementing something in your practice, how do you track that and get everybody on the same page? So I learned that. I was so super excited about that. And I've also been an associate professor, and I've written several peer education grants. So I love college health as well. Currently, I am on the board of the American Association of Christian Counselors and Coaches, and I am a coach, not a counselor. I'm also on their international organization, and I'm also a member of NAPA, which is National Association of Professional Organizers, of the national chapter and the local chapter. And I actually started the local chapter 13 years ago, and it's still thriving. They've got 100 members. Why is this important to you? Well, let me tell you, because every single thing that you're going to learn in perfect practice, the root of all of it is organization. And so I can really help you in every step of the way stay organized and keep your team organized. And here at Living Well, Betty and I are really good at dividing up our skills and our talents and our roles and what we do. So I would say that I'm probably the team culture person. I do like to make a good form, a good survey. I love forms and all that kind of stuff, and systems, and keeping us organized and liking and loving each other. Playing well in the sandbox, shall we say. So, who is this for? This is a seminar for practitioners who are motivated to change their practice. This is for practitioners who can envision a future, but they don't know the best path on how to get there. And this is for practitioners who are ready to serve and serve big. Serve the people that you love to work with, and practitioners who might feel stuck. And that's not really a fun feeling. And practitioners who want a business, not a job. Practitioners who want freedom and to get paid well for their expertise. So we hope that you will think big, believe big, act big, and the results will be what? Big. Who is this not for? We really think that this is not for practitioners who don't want to change. If you're just a tire kicker and you're just, buying one more program because it sounds cool, but you're not really going to implement, this probably is not for you. Practitioners who let their staff make decisions about their practice and just kind of let them run the show, not for you. Practitioners who are not coachable, not for you. Practitioners who let fear keep them stuck, this is not for you.
So we want to ask yourself, is this about fear of change? Because that's going to be an underlying theme to this conversation today is anytime we have to change, we have to usually step through fear. And so we're going to walk you through the practicalities of how to step through that fear in those three main topic areas. But I want to share a little bit about our background of our clinic and our clinical practices. You've heard a little bit about us, but I want to talk about our current practice today, because a lot of times you hear people talking about their business expertise and their business acumen, but you may not be clear about, have they been in my shoes before? What's their story? Are they still practicing? Do they still have a business? So our clinic, we actually started our clinic back in 2005. We started out 1,100 square feet, and we had 4 practitioners. We had a physician, we had Jenny and I, and then we had a massage therapist and a counselor. And we quickly went from that small practice and moved into a 2,200 square foot space about 18 months later. And then we quickly moved from there 2.5 years later to what we currently have today, which is 5,000 square feet. We currently have 14 different practitioners, 3 of which are physicians. We have clinical nutrition, we have health coaches, life coaches, counselors, massage therapists, Bowen therapy, which is an osteopathic manipulation and massage, energy medicine. We have a pain recovery clinic that is all about bringing natural, drug-free pain relief for chronic pain conditions. So we've been there. We've been there in what you're doing. And I think the most important thing you need to hear is a couple things about our financial background. We are completely 100% self-funded. We run a 7-figure practice. The majority of our practitioners work part-time. We don't see people on Fridays except for a few softer side services like massage. And we are completely self-funded. We have never taken a dime of outside funding. We funded completely out of our own back pocket. So the important part for you to know is that we weren't trust fund kids either. So we learned how to do this. I'm actually open with a little bit of bravado. We thought this is the way primary care should be. We should have an integrated practice, and we are completely integrated. We have combined charting. We have group case studies, and we really thought that this is what needed to happen. And so we kind of pulled the trigger and cowboyed it a little bit to some degree at the time. And we didn't really think about it then that maybe we would make some pretty big mistakes. So we have made mistakes, but we've also done a lot of things right. And we learned how to market on a shoestring and really forge a new model and develop integration and create team development, and also really learn how to educate a marketplace. So we've been there, and we're still there. So we owned that company, and we also own Minerva Medical Consulting, which is the parent company of Perfect Practice, and that company has been around since 2009. And we've consulted with conventional physicians, chiropractors all over the country, helping them one-on-one bring their practice into the functional medicine age and create their own perfect practice. So we still do both, and we're able to manage that because we're great at compartmentalization and keeping things going, right? But our goal is to really help hundreds and thousands of practices transform their practice so they can really have their perfect practice. So let's get on to that top 3 mistakes that keep you stuck. So mistake number 3 is, we're going to call this waiting to start practicing functional medicine until ... So this mistake is actually driven by the belief that taking training modules, attending seminars, and getting another certification, essentially waiting to really practice until you're certified or you pass some criteria, is what you need to do. And really, the first thing you got to know is functional medicine, integrative medicine, holistic health care, whatever your moniker is the epitome of practice. We're talking about systems biology, and you're applying it to a myriad of health conditions. You're taking the patient or client's information, this entire health history, and plotting it out on a matrix and taking it and trying to create some sort of plan that you can then convey to a layman and be able to convince and engage them in lifestyle change, dietary change, medications when necessary, supplements most likely. And the truth is that's not something that you switch on overnight. You have to practice day in, day out. And it's really when you begin to practice day in, day out, and you implement these things that you've learned, that stuff coalesces and you become good at functional medicine. So starting practicing functional medicine every day is akin to your functional medicine residency. So if you were a physician and you had a residency, you were practicing medicine with mentorship. right? You weren't a full-fledged doctor yet, but you were a doctor. The same thing is true. You should start practicing now, so when you take the certification exam, you're just confirming what you already know, that you are a functional medicine practitioner. And this is caused by training paralysis, and it is all driven by the feeling of inadequacy. You need more certifications. I gotta finish all the modules. I gotta take a new class or seminar. I remember talking to an anesthesiologist friend, and she's like, Betty, I think I need to go back and get a master's in nutrition. And I was like, no, you just need to practice the functional medicine you're learning, right? They don't teach you that in nutrition school. This is all secondary. So it's this fear of not knowing enough. And I want to tell you a little bit about a doctor that we worked with, Dr. Terry. And Dr. Terry had taken all the functional medicine modules. She had gone to IFMCP, if you're familiar with IFM, and she had dabbled a little bit in functional medicine. So she'd talk about vitamin D a little bit here and there, but she had grand plans. She was going to implement a lifestyle change system. She was going to have a whole new practice. And she was waiting till she took the exam to start. So when we started asking her questions, I said, well, what are you going to do when you finish the exam? She said, well, I'm going to add a bunch of nutritional testing and food sensitivity testing and stool testing, and then we're going to start doing all this functional medicine. And I said, okay. Have you ever done any of these tests? Well, no, I haven't really done all of them on myself yet. And I said, well, okay, walk me through this. Tell me what you would tell that patient or that client, why I should take that test. And she started blinking for a few minutes, and you could see the confusion run across her face because she hadn't ever really thought about it. She knew she wanted to do these tests because they were cool, but she hadn't thought about how do I bring that into the room and start talking to my patient and start really explaining why I might want to look at this data and what am I going to garner from the data that's going to help me direct what she needs to do. So while we're having this conversation, it becomes really apparent to Terry, wow, I'm waiting to flip the switch on my practice until I finish the certification exam, but I just lost a lot of time because guess what? Now it's going to take her months to implement all those new changes. Her staff didn't know about this, so she was going to take a long time to implement this that she had waited to take the certification exam, so she could have been doing this all along. And if she had started doing these processes slowly in bite-sized chunks that she could take on, she would have been confirming that she was a functional medicine practitioner when she took that test, rather than starting her functional medicine practice after that test. So it is such an incredible thing to realize that you're losing time, losing ground, and losing skills because you're waiting. So often people say, well, gosh, I can't start functional medicine because, you know, I'm not going to get my worth. You know, maybe I'm in an insurance model and I'm not going to get adequately paid. I can't do functional medicine until I spend more time. Maybe I'm stuck in a 10-minute visit, or I can't do functional medicine because maybe I work with people that can't afford functional medicine. And those are all big, big signs of we're just making roadblocks to getting started. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Now, this is true for a lot of people. You come out of that training and it's like, you know, drinking from a fire hydrant. You don't have any idea where to start. So you're just like, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch the videos again, and I'm going to go back through all the presentations, and I'll eventually figure out how to fine-tune this, right? So you just sit, right? Or you may not be doing functional medicine because you have contracts with hospitals or affiliations or your medical group, and there's some real concerns there. You may not be able to bring in fancy testing, and you may not be able to bring in extraordinary change to the practice. But here's the thing. This is all fear of change. So maybe you've tried to put a little bit in practice before, and it's fizzled out there for a few weeks. Matter of fact, one of our clinicians and practitioners here says, you know, practitioners, particularly doctors, are like dinosaurs. We're extremely slow to change. And it's true, because you get stuck in a rut and you get stuck into a particular pattern. You weren't trained to systematize your practice. You weren't trained to create processes. You definitely weren't trained in business. And a lot of these things, you don't understand how to put it in play, and you also may not understand how to get your team involved in putting it in play. But either way, you're getting robbed of the chance to put into practice the education you're paying good, if not extraordinary amounts of money for, right? So you have to have a system and a process documented so you can train yourself and your staff. And I know what it's like. I've been to that training, and I've narrowed down and kind of fine-tuned a framework, because functional medicine is not necessarily protocols. There is frameworks to everything that you do once you understand the underpinnings. But I know what it's like to walk back and go, whoa, I have no idea what I just learned, and I don't know how to put it into place. So the truth is you have to get past fear and go into action. So functional medicine absolutely starts with the patient interaction or client interaction. So you don't have to have fancy tests. You don't have to have anything else. You just have to realize that chances are if you just change a little bit of your conversation with your client or patient, you're going to create extraordinary change in that room. And it starts with asking the question differently, not what's your complaint today, but just tell me what's going on, right? At that moment, you give them a few minutes to talk. Even if you have a 10-minute visit, you can give them a couple minutes of that time for them to give all of their information. The average physician cuts off the patient in the first 7 seconds. That is not adequate. You need to listen more, talk less in the very beginning, and that creates engagement, right? So that is vital to your practice. You can start talking diet and lifestyle and stress management, even in a conventional practice, even within a 10-minute visit. There are tools. You may have tools from IFM, you may have tools from A4M, or any training that you have. Print those diet guides, stress management guides, breathing guides, because you can hand those to people and say, I know we're going to take care of whatever X, Y, and Z. Here's some information about how you can take some proactive diet and lifestyle change. And that will give your patients an understanding of what to do, because they really don't know what to do. They don't know what to eat. They don't know how to live. You can use your functional medicine mind to evaluate your traditional labs looking for patterns, not just looking for pathology. So you can use that. So let's talk about those top 3 things you can do right now. So first, you change your patient-client conversation. Absolutely true. Do that today. Use the tools available through IFM or one of your other affiliations, the meal plans, elimination diets, cardiometabolic food plan. One of the most effective things you can do to start change the culture in your practice is start a detox group with the doc. So you just create a flyer, pick a date, have a little talk about why detox may be important, or maybe you're going to talk about weight loss, or maybe you're going to talk about cholesterol. Doesn't really matter. You create a date to have a nice 30-minute talk, hand the flyers out to every single person that comes in, make sure your staff knows about it, talks about it, and invite your patients to come and have them join the group. And you can give them a cardiometabolic food plan or an elimination diet and give them 30 days to do it. What that does is start to create a culture around lifestyle change. Your patients will self-select to be in that group, and you'll start having people see you differently. You know, and if you're in a less conventional practice and you have the freedom to make change, you can start using functional medicine to evaluate your labs. So you have to think about that, and you have to start doing that, because those things can create extraordinary change. And what it does is it makes you feel powerful within even maybe a very confined paradigm to be able to start practicing what you're learning. Okay, so that's number 3. So what do you think? Should we go to mistake number 2?
Dun, dun, dun. Ineffective marketing or non-existent marketing. The second biggest mistake aspiring functional medicine practitioners is failing to have effective marketing and lead generation strategies. Let's be real and open and honest here. Marketing is lead generation, and marketing is not sales. Sales is a service or a product exchange for money. The truth is that building a beautiful marketing website and logo, creating an email newsletter, or buying software will automatically bring you your perfect functional medicine client and generate new clients all on its own. Marketing should be based on results. Simply put, marketing is lead generation. Any marketing you do must result in leads, or it's a waste of your what? Time, money, and energy. Many practitioners spend countless hours and endless dollars on ineffective marketing that eats through their limited, if any, small budget you may have to generate leads for your practice and leaves you disheartened and frustrated. For many of our clients, marketing can be and is a source of frustration and pain, mainly because they lack a plan. From many people we hear, I don't have a marketing budget. The truth is that we have all spent money on marketing that doesn't work. So we always encourage people to spend money on what does. So that means creating a plan and having a budget to invest in proper lead generation for your future clients. Let's see. So however, how you spend that marketing budget will largely determine if you get any value from your dollars, or if you're just haphazardly spending and haphazardly making little campaigns. So let's talk about it. Marketing is exposure. And don't you want exposure to you and your practice and your great services, and if you have a team, all the great team members that you have? So today's market requires active and passive marketing. So let's just break this down. It's not too hard. So do you have some of these following activities? And we would put these under active marketing. So for example, do you go out and speak to groups in your community? When Betty and I started, we both loved to speak and teach, but we also had a really tiny marketing budget. So we knew that if you are in front of people, then after an hour, they will what? Know, like, and trust you. They've already made a decision during the time that you're up in front of them what they're going to do next and if they want to work with you or not. Maybe not even at this moment, but we've had people the longest amount of time. We had a lady come in 5 years after a speech that we gave. So one of the things that you can do right away is start booking some speaking engagements. Think of the top 1 to 3 topics that you would love to teach on. We created a Living Well Speakers Bureau. So we had that in the bottom of all of our newsletters saying, we have a list of topics, contact us. We'd love to talk to you about doing events or speaking gigs or health fairs. We always had that little line, and that's really important. And then Betty and I were, we just brainstormed one day. We're like, hey, well, why don't we get into Whole Foods and Central Market, because they're our right clientele. They already think healthy. They already are spending money on their health. So let's do that. So then we started speaking at Whole Foods and Central Market, and then we were like, hey, let's take over the town. Let's go to as many locations as possible near us. And so then we started going to, I think, 4 different locations. And we had that relationship with Central Market and Whole Foods for close to 6 years. And we got a lot of play, a lot of interaction, a lot of clients coming in from that. So that would be an example of active marketing. And so let's talk about passive marketing. So I think of passive marketing as things that are in print. So that could be a website, that could be a brochure, that could be a business card, that could be all of your social medias. It doesn't mean that they aren't sending an active message or having an active campaign, especially the social media and website, but they're passive. People are, it's more valuable to get in front of your people through video or face-to-face in person. I do want to suggest, you know, Betty and I talk about there are great ways to spend your money on a website, and you absolutely do not have to spend thousands. We hear doctors saying, you know, oh, I'm going to get this $8,000, $10,000 website, and Betty and I are like, wait, learn from us. Get a smaller website and make sure that it has ClickFunnels and all of this lead generation technology behind it. Betty's going to talk about that a little later. But so I want you to think about wisely spending your money. And think about this. All the social medias are free. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all of those venues are free to you. And most of the time, 67% of people will actually go to your Facebook business page first to see if you are a real deal, if you're, you know, if you're out there, and then they go to your website. So if you do not have a Facebook page, you are missing the boat. And it's free, again. And this is a great way that you can use it. So you can use it to set up shop and to say, hey, I'm here and this is what I do. The great thing about Facebook is that you can share other experts' posts and comment on it, and you don't even have to write any new material. The other bonus about Facebook and other social media venues is that you can post a video, which is awesome, because then you can get leverage and legs on your one video that you film right there in your office. And then people are like, oh, well, their office looks nice. They seem like a great person. I would love that. Also, after you get your practice going, you can have actually VIP Facebook groups that are free to you that you can say, oh, if you're taking the spring detox, then I'll have a closed group and you can ask me questions. Well, people love that because they have access to you to get their questions answered, and they feel special. They have their little VIP group. So if you are not on Facebook, I want you to take an hour to make that happen. So again, the rundown, active versus passive. So it's really important that you develop your 1 to 3 top favorite speaking topics. Now, if you're one of those people that get freaked out and you can't even imagine getting up in front of a group of people, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first one is to get a part of a local Toastmasters group, and then the way that you get better at it is practice. Practice, 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 practice. And then the second way is you can also hire a speaking coach. That's another opportunity. But the third way, oh, I have a third. So the third way is to actually do a lot of networking groups that are specific to your target population. And the more that you get up and you talk about yourself and your services and your practice, it will become easier the next time. And so that's really important. And have one-on-one meetings. This is very important. If there is a person that has that you think could be a great referral source, set up that one-on-one meeting. And it's not to be all about you. Get curious. Ask a lot of questions. Who's the perfect referral for you? What are you passionate about? Who do you like to see? I can think of a lot of people that Betty and I know that we have great referral systems with in terms of referring to them and them referring to us, is because we took that time to take an hour and a half to get to know each other and then continue to get to know each other over time. So that's really important, and that is what? Free. So passive would be your website, your advertising, your social medias, print ads, articles, blog posts. And the reason a blog post is important is because now you have content all over the internet, and you've got tags with that, which brings you up in the search engine optimization, sorry. And so this is the thing. If you're not a great writer, get a ghostwriter. And that's pretty affordable when you're doing blog posts. And then you use those blog posts and integrate them back into your newsletter, which is free to cheap, and also back into your social media posts. So I love this picture. Well, I've added zillions of forms, but there's still no sign of a lead. So this is really important to remember that in the softball movie, Field of Dreams, they said, build or they will come. And the thing is, just because you open up a website and you've got all these great forms does not automatically mean that people are going to come, rushing through your door to your practice. Now, maybe they could. And if that happens, then you have to prove Betty and I wrong. But it really takes relationship. And relationship comes from face-to-face, video, and webinar or teleseminar.
So another overarching solution is the idea of adding value first through education-based marketing. So education-based marketing is the strategy in which all marketing should be done. And education-based marketing is really giving value first, okay? And you give value by giving important education. So you don't hold back your best education because you want to make them come see you. What you want to do is provide value first, because that then gives them an ability to know, love, and trust you. So when you look at effective education-based marketing, it influences the criteria on which your potential client makes his or her purchase. So the first thing to know is marketing is not selling, period. Marketing is lead generation. And you either have to learn how to position your information and position the sale, or you're going to have to hire somebody else to do it. And you better hope that they know functional medicine and understand what you're trying to achieve. And in many cases, they may not. We are lucky enough that we have partners within our organization who focus on this and who are fantastic partners. But this is not always an easy concept, but it's an important concept because it's what the world lives on. Because if you can't provide good education, you're going to get lost in the fray. There's just too much information being pumped out there. So websites, email, word of mouth are all tactics. So we're talking about a strategy. So education-based marketing is the only strategy that really works for small business, because it's the only way you can stand out against big people. So again, marketing is sharing your knowledge, it's adding value, and giving value before you position the sale. Marketing is not selling, it's not sleazy, wrong, or inappropriate. It is actually your imperative to share with people your skills and to share with people your talents. Because if you don't do that, you can't go out there and serve and help people. So before you spend another dollar on any marketing, you want to ask your marketing consultant, website developer, brochure manufacturer, anything like that, how do you generate a sales funnel? Can you funnel leads to my website? How do you integrate this with my social media so you can create leads? And what's your plan for a lead magnet? If they can't answer that, do not spend with them. So here's some things you need to learn. If you want to serve, you got to market, and then you got to sell. And service is selling, and selling is service. So even if you would say, I'm not in it for the money, you are in it for the money, because you have to make money in order to serve the people you want to, right? So the most vital component once you get education-based marketing started is positioning the sale. And that is setting a buying criteria. So I'm going to give you an example of that. So a buying criteria, if we were buying shoes, is comfort. How do these feel? Can I walk in them for hours? Another criteria might be look. Do they look awesome on me? Do I look fabulous in my outfits with these shoes? And then another criteria may be price. How affordable are these shoes? Depending on the criteria you want your client or potential patient to buy on, you have to set up that position. So if you are creating a practice where you are working with people on wellness, you're going to want to position that discussion around wellness, not disease management, which is a vastly different kind of environment than what you probably are working in today if you're on the traditional insurance model. So effective education-based marketing influences that criteria, and it helps the potential client self-select to become a client of yours. And in most cases, when done well, they automatically come to you after hearing the education and the positioning you give them, and almost are begging to work with you. They're asking, can you take me on as a client? How can I come see you? Because I need what you offer. The bottom line is you either learn how to position or pay a bunch of money to hire somebody. And no one can replace you in the process, because even if you've hired somebody, you have to hire somebody and you have to know that they know what you do, and that means they have to know functional medicine. And one of the most important things Jenny and I have always done is we've worked with consultants, we work with consultants today, but we make sure that we understand the process end to end so we don't miss something, because it's usually a very costly experience when you do. So the marketing tools that you use to present this education-based marketing is, number one, your mouth is your greatest asset, and it's your greatest marketing tool. Whether you do it online, through video, or in person, you have to use your mouth to market. And even if you hire a salesperson, truth is, in this world, they want to meet you. Jenny and I do a lot of public speaking. I still do. I love public speaking. And the truth is, I can talk about all the awesome people at Living Well and what we do, but when they meet you on stage or they meet you one-on-one, they're developing the relationship with you. In most cases, they will self-select to see you. They don't make that same connection with a salesperson or a marketing person. They just don't. So even if you may have those people talented on your team, you still want to be a part of that integral experience. You know, and developing your relationships are really, really important. So you can do that. And if these tools sound scary to you and all of this, you're like, oh my gosh, forget it, I'm not doing it, just not doing it. You got to know what this is. Guess what? It's fear. It's fear. That's all it is. And the chemistry behind fear and excitement is the same chemistry. So you need to know that. So today, your effective marketing tool is education-based marketing. That is the strategy. You provide value first. It sets you up as an expert. Regardless of where that marketing is and what it is, it all stems from education first, and then you position yourself in the minds and hearts of your prospective clients as the go-to for whatever that subject matter is. And most of your website designers and almost all copywriters don't have any idea how to do education-based marketing.
So I love this slide, because you are now going from one aspect of healthcare, and I'm just going to say it, now you're becoming a providerpreneur. You are becoming an entrepreneur, and you have to think differently. And you're going to have lots of new experiences that do feel fearful, but you're just going to, if you just learn the right ways to do it, you can step out on that fear and learn, oh my gosh, I survived that. I can totally do this again. That wasn't as hard as I thought it was. But you have to challenge yourself a little bit, and you have to think like an entrepreneur. So I think that's really important. You are a new type of business owner. You are the marketing team, you are administration, you are management, you are the team cheerleader, you are a provider. Sometimes you're even the janitor. And then I want you to think about, this is an important person to look up from the marketing standpoint. His name is Seth Godin, G-O-D-I-N. And he talks a lot about how do you find your tribe. And how do you make your tribe well known? And in this case, you know, Betty and I, we are part of the functional medicine tribe, and so are you. And at the beginning, and I guess we still are, we're healthcare revolutionists, really. And there's people out there already looking for us. Actually, there's a shortage of functional medicine practitioners. One of the things Seth talks about is finding your tribe, but another thing he talks about, he has another book called Purple Cow. And I think this is a brilliant concept. He said, you know, you can be taking a drive down the country road, you're driving along, you're looking out, you're thinking, oh, wow, this is beautiful, this is peaceful, look at those cows, they're so cute. And he goes, but you would stop, you would slow down, you would back up your car if you were driving by and you saw a purple cow, wouldn't you? I would. And so when you think about a purple cow, it's how do I make what I do, how do I make my story, my brand stand out like a purple cow? So you're going to have to take a little bit of a risk is what we're saying. So you've got to get past the fear and step into action, my friends. So the truth is you love functional medicine. Otherwise, you wouldn't continue to go to all these great trainings and pay a lot of fun money for your education. So, you know, I was standing in Target the other day, and I was looking down at the magazines, just scrolling while I was waiting to check out, and I saw that Dr. Oz has a magazine. And I thought, dang, how times have changed, because when Betty and I started our business, you know, 11 years ago, there was no kind of magazine representing Dr. Hyman or Dr. Oz or any of the people out there that are boosting living the kind of lifestyle that we're talking about. So you actually have a lot of publicity and celebs on your side that are all speaking the same thing. Even if they're not calling it functional medicine, they may be calling it lifestyle or stress relief or whatever. But this is the thing, you have an audience active. So start marketing now, even if you're not doing functional medicine or you're just doing in your mind a few little things. You need to start now. And one of the things that you can start, you know, I'm going to repeat. If you haven't noticed, we repeat so that it'll sink in. Create a blog, whether you write it or you have a ghostwriter. You want to identify the top 1 to 3 topics that you can speak on out in the world. The other thing is you engage in sharing your knowledge freely on social media. Betty and I have done a great job of this, I will say, because people come to us, they see us as the resource ladies, the go-to girls. They know that we're going to find out the answer for them. So they may be asking something about a service or a practitioner at Living Well, but it could be something in general that we actually don't do here, but we'll find out the answer and we'll refer them. But they think we're rock stars when we give them a solid referral, whether it's underneath our roof or out in the community. That is what you need to do with social media to start positioning yourself as an expert. The other thing you can do if you want to get more comfortable, or you already are comfortable with speaking and teaching, you know, create a YouTube channel. Again, it is owned by Google, so it is free to you to set up as many YouTube channels as you so desire. And what Betty and I have done, we actually bought our own little light kits, and, you know, at first our lighting was horrible, and I'm not to say that it's perfect now, but we bought like 3 light kits, and we have a little canvas backdrop, and we watched some videos on YouTube trying to figure out right lighting and that type of thing. You know, the beauty of YouTube is that people don't expect it to be perfect. They expect it to be a lot of normal people sharing information. So I want you to think about this concept of edutainment. So you can be educating people in these videos. You can also use videos on your website. You can also use video. What we're starting to do is add video to the initial paperwork email that goes out to clients. Then they can start seeing, oh, what do they expect of me? How's this first appointment going to go? And then that way, you're setting up boundaries and clear expectations about what you're going to provide and what they're going to receive before they ever walk in the door. So that's another really incredible way to use video. So we want you to think about right now, write down something as we're going along about one thing that you can do differently. So help! You are not alone. So if you're out there feeling stuck or overwhelmed already, or tired and unsure and doubtful, and just any other number of feelings that you're having, we want you to know that you are not alone, and we've done this before. This is why we're offering to you, because people ask Betty and I all the time for advice. And so I want to give you a special offer, and that is to have a one-on-one perfect practice strategy session with myself. And this session is going to be 60 minutes, all about you, all about your business. Actually, you get 55 minutes to be all about you, and if I get your permission, in the last 5 minutes, I'm going to share what we're doing with all of our great services at Perfect Practice Coaching. So to sign up for this, all you're going to need to do is email Jenny, Jenny, at functionalmedicinebusiness.com, or call me. I love a good phone call, 972-246-8824. And then as soon as I get your email, then I'm going to send you back a couple documents. I'm going to send you a readiness survey to just sort of check in and see where you're at in your practice. And then you can have that when you get on the call with me. And then we're going to set a time and we're going to go for it. So I want you to settle down in between your ears.
And I want you to know, so this is something very valuable to us. So we're only offering this opportunity for this strategy call because we spend an exorbitant amount of time on the phone here talking to people, and we want to offer this, but it's only good for 7 days after this webinar. So go ahead and jump on it, because we can't obviously take thousands of phone calls. We want people who are really serious about wanting to change their practice. Right. And know that this isn't really a sales call, that we're going to dedicate that entire time to helping you get unstuck in whatever situation you're in your practice. And that could be anything from you want a conventional practice, you want something different, it could be anything, but we want to really help you get unstuck. And like Jenny said, the last few minutes will tell you about our different programs, whether they're group programs, individual coaching. We just want to be able to share that stuff with you, but we really, really want to see healthcare change. I tell everybody, it's like, if I could have something on my grave that says, you know, what did you do professionally? I want mine to say I was instrumental in changing how healthcare was delivered in the United States and around the world, and that functional medicine became the standard of care. And if we can make that part of everybody's experience, then that's what we're about, and we want to help you do that, because we know the doctor, chiropractor, naturopath, health coach, nutritionist, allied health professional, nurse, these are the people that are going to lead this change. It's not the big medical systems. Right. So take the opportunity to email Jenny at functionalmedicinebusiness.com so you can do that, and then we'll open up that conversation, and you'll learn a huge amount just from that one phone call. So, are you ready for the #1 mistake? All right. Dun, dun, dun. Here it is. So the #1 mistake. Aha! It's the cash pay paralysis, otherwise known as I don't know how to charge for my skills. Right? So this #1 mistake keeps most functional medicine practitioners trapped. If it's not #3 and not #2 or some combination of all three, it's this one. And this is driven by the belief that you have to completely change your practice now, from whatever it is today, an insurance-based model, to a completely cash pay model, in order to do functional medicine. Or maybe you're trying a cash pay practice, but you don't have any people. Either way, we have a fundamental problem, and the big problem is we don't have the slightest idea how to transition from what you're doing today practically, safely, and effectively. So instead, you just stay trapped. And the real truth is that if you change your financial model incorrectly, you could do significant damage to your practice and your personal income, and that will keep you completely trapped and frustrated. And that fear is really what drives people to stand back and not do anything. And the other truth is believing the only way you can do functional medicine is to radically transform your practice to a cash pay practice overnight is not necessarily true. Not every practitioner wants a cash pay practice. I would say the majority do, but not everybody does. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's actually 3 different types of practices you could really have. And there's 3 different transitional plans that you could implement to go as fast or as slow as you need to change your practice. So what would those options be? It might be cash only, right? You might get cash pay programs. You have a wellness program. It's for a strategic period of time. They pay a particular price, and you afford them particular services. You might have cash pay by the hour, so you figure out what your hourly value is, and you trade your time for dollars. That's, definitely one way to do it. There could be a concierge model where maybe you take a small amount of clientele or patients, and you may charge all cash and you're kind of at their beck and call. Or you may have cash and insurance, which is a very popular concierge model. So you could still accommodate insurance for services, but you have an upfront wellness fee that's annual. You know, we actually have a doctor we're working with that doesn't even want to practice medicine in a conventional sense, even though she was getting pressured by other people to do so. She really wants to have retreats and workshops and maybe have a few private patients, but she didn't really want to be in clinical practice. But at the time we started talking to her, she was looking at a $20,000 EHR. Don't buy one of those. Right? So she was feeling the pressure to fulfill what other people told her she needed to do, but she wanted to do retreats. So even that's a possibility. The sky is the limit. You could have a hybrid with cash pay products and services and insurance bill. Or you could even do all insurance, but really maximize how you're billing so you can make money. There are a lot of choices for your practice, and the truth is each one of you have your own unique dream and your own unique practice. You may not be 100% clear on it now, but there is a personal perfect practice just for you. And part of what we enjoy doing is helping people craft that and create that. So, you know, being a pioneer means you kind of blaze the trail. But if you can survive and tame it, you can take the wild, wild west. So a little kind of background story. When we started, you know, we were lucky enough that we had both come from a business background and we had had a lot of experience in this. We'd been taught about business, finance, marketing, sales, technology, employee leadership. But, you know, we didn't even know that we were missing a big part of what it took to be in business in this world. You know, in 2005, when we opened, in 2006, we were so bleeding edge. We took it for granted that everybody must understand that you got to eat right, sleep right, you know, think right, breathe right. And when we got out into the marketplace and people were like, well, why would you have nutrition in a doctor's office? And, you know, who cares about my mental health? It was kind of a shock, you know, because you get so used to being in your tribe. You're with Seth Godin's people and you're with your tribe. You're all MAC carriers, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden you realize, wow, these people aren't on my same page. But here's the beauty of it. So we had to learn in a really, really tough way how to educate the marketplace about functional medicine. And actually most of the clinics in the Dallas area are really benefiting from the amount of marketing we did early on, because we've already told you what we did on our blood, sweat, and tears. You know, so now we're able to freely market and freely do a lot of things to help build the business, and we can leverage things like social media, which didn't even exist when we were starting out. You know, you had a newsletter. That was about the only electronic things you can do. So you can tame it, and you can create the right business and create the right business model. You just have to know where you're starting. So what you need is a roadmap. You have to know how to take your practice from where it is today and where you want to take it. You have to know where you're starting financially. So I know a lot of docs and a lot of other allied health professionals that have no earthly idea how they're doing financially. They don't know what their revenue goals are. They don't know how they did last year, last month. They don't know if they're making money. At the end of the year, it's a crapshoot when they go to their CPA to find out if they're actually making money, right? So you have to be honest, and you have to know where you got to go financially. You have to know whether you need a slow transition or whether you have the capacity to move a little more quickly. It depends on each person. We had some doctors that we worked with years ago that transitioned an internal medicine practice into a cash pay practice, and it was about a 2-year process. So they went from not knowing a darn thing about functional medicine to having us consult with them, spend time with them, change their conversation with their patients, taking some functional medicine training, learning how to do things differently, bringing in products, then bringing in a health coach. And then they changed their entire population and how they worked with them. And then in the end, about a year ago, they completely went to cash pay with very little attrition of their clientele because it was a well-processed, well-planned out activity. And it was also comfortable for them. So that's the other piece of this, is you need to know what your comfort level for change is. You have to change, so that you have to get onto, but you have to know what your comfort level is. And you have to know whether you and your staff are in the right mindset. A lot of people are trapped by their front office and their management staff that are ill-placed and not capable of really being in that environment because they don't understand it. They don't participate in it, and they themselves may have money issues. And that's a critical piece, and we spend a lot of time with people's staffs and their practice so they know. But I want to tell you a little story so this can really sink in for you. I met a Dr. Jim at a functional medicine event in Chicago a couple years ago. At the time, he was working locum tenens in the Chicago area, so he's filling in for people. And after a few minutes of talking to him, he told me he'd had a private practice actually for about 22 years until about a year and a half prior. Once he started functional medicine training, he just felt like he could no longer live in that conventional model. And he went to a conference, and got super fired up. So he rolls in the office Monday morning, announces to his staff that we're getting rid of this conventional medicine and insurance, we're going to functional medicine. He started canceling his contracts. He sent out letters to his patients. And guess what happened? He tanked. He really tanked. And his current patients felt abandoned. His staff was completely bewildered. They didn't even understand functional medicine. They didn't live the lifestyle. They had never experienced it. He had never shared any of that training because they weren't present for it. And so what happened was, as you flash forward about 8-9 months later, he had to fold his practice. He completely closed because he couldn't financially keep the doors open. And so at the time I had met him, he was still taking modules. He was reading functional medicine stuff, waiting to kind of get started again. So he really felt that his dream was gone. He still had opportunity, but he squandered his opportunity by pulling the trigger quickly and impulsively rather than having a process and a plan in place. So that's what really you have to think about, is regardless of what it might look like to require and deliberate and go through a process and proven plans, you have to do that. You have to make sure that every part of the process works and that your employees are on board and that your patients are on board. You have a captive audience that probably know, love, and trust you. You don't want to lose them because you handle the transition poorly. And in most cases, you won't, right? So the cash pay paralysis is important, and the roadmap is even more important. And the reality is you're stuck in fear, and that's keeping you from doing something about it. So the fear of financial failure and the fear of maybe bringing attention to yourself, social pressure to stay the same. I know a lot of functional medicine practitioners that all their friends are doctors, right? So everybody they hang out with and spend time with are mostly conventional doctors that think they're quacks or crazy or doing something silly. So you get all these social pressures to stay in the same paradigm. So you have to really look at it and say, am I willing to step through that fear and do it anyway? Because otherwise you're going to step into the exam room with that prescription pad in hand, heart in your shoes, scratching out another day, only to go home to work on chart notes and listen to a functional medicine webinar, dreaming of a day when you can become a functional medicine practitioner. So I want you to get past that fear. So how do we get past fear and get into action? Here's some homework. So before you tackle the finances, you need to take a moment to do this. We go through these topic areas in extraordinary detail in our different programs, but I want you to just take a swath at this at the very beginning. I want you to take a chance and just write down a vision for your future. It may not be perfect, it may not be exact, but what does it look like? So, and here's the questions you need to ask yourself. How many people do I see a day? What hours do I work? Am I seeing people in person and virtually? Am I all in person? Am I seeing a few clients? Am I seeing many? Do I work in groups? Do I have a big practice? Do you have something like what we have, where we have all these integrated practitioners working together and it's a gigantic team? Or do I want a nice little boutique and it's me and some administrative staff and I don't have a lot of overhead? You want to define how you spend your time with your family and friends. Those are the most important people to you, but they're the people you spend the least amount of time with. You've got to define that. So, do I have freedom to go on vacations? Most doctors I know get a week a year and that's it, and that's pitiful because you work too hard to take less time off. And then you need to define what success really means for you. How would you define that? Is it financial? Is it personal growth? Is it feeling the sense of freedom? Is it all of those things? You need to be clear about that. So write those things down. So when you define that vision, again, like I said, there are 3 real fundamental ways you transform your model. So even if your model is looking way down the line to a cash pay model, there may be steps along the way where the transition may happen slowly, like bringing in cash pay services and continuing insurance. So you have to always start with the end in mind, and you want to figure out where that's going to be. And you have to get real with where you are and what you want. You have to define your perfect financial model. What's your current situation? So here's a chance to get critical with yourself. Are you in debt? Are you barely scratching by? Do you have some additional capital? Because those type of questions will define how comfortable you probably would be with transition. and there are different ways to do it. We have people that may be in debt or may be scratching out an existent, but they have a mindset where they can aggressively change, so they may be in a different place, but you need to be real about that. Do you want to just augment what you're doing with some cash pay services and move forward with insurance? But you have to be really clear about where you're at. What are your contracts with people, both health insurance companies and hospitals? Are you trapped in that? Is it something you want to get out of? And if so, when's your ability to do that? We have a lot of people that come to us that are maybe 1 to 2 years out from a contract that might be doing functional medicine on the side. That's fine. You just got to know where you're at and what you can do. And then you also need to get real critical about your affairs and your current state of affairs. Again, like the profitability. Do you have a staff that can move with you and go along with you? Or do you have a staff that's, quite frankly, probably crispy and burned out, right? Maybe they can turn around, maybe they can't, but I know a lot of the times when we've consulted with people, one of the first things that we talk about is, who works with you and where are they in this model? Can they see it? Do they have a scarcity mentality? Those things are really, really important. And then you have to also look at your current state of affairs with your loved ones, your partner, and everything else, because you're not just a doctor anymore, or just a chiropractor, or just a naturopath, or a health coach, or a nutritionist. You're an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurships mean, in some ways, giving up a little bit right now for an end game, because you're not creating a job, you're creating a business, but your family is along for the ride, and you have to make sure that you're being clear and have clarity around what that looks like. So the truth is there's several options to bringing functional medicine to your practice. There are also several options to transition your practice from insurance to cash, if that's your goal. And again, not everybody wants a cash pay practice, but even more so, the truth is that you have to have a template to walk you through it. In most cases, it's not something that you can just fly by the seat of your pants, and at best, you may go into it and end in frustration. The more freedom you have, both contractually and financially, means more directly and more quickly you can transition your practice into a cash pay practice. And I've seen many, many people, including friends of mine, even some of my closest healthcare community friends, struggle to put a financial package together and get their functional medicine practice up and running to make money. And many times it's because they didn't do the upfront planning and organization work that it takes to do that, or they weren't being coachable. So it's very important that you also realize that your hopes and fears are intertwined, and if things make you frightened, you have to be willing to be coachable about it. And either you stay stuck in conventional turn and burn medicine, heartbroken and despondent, or you get a chance to change. So there's a great opportunity here, and it is true that the public is clamoring for functional medicine. Most people that I know that have mastered this model have wait lists. I myself, as a nutritionist, practicing functional nutrition, have a 10 to 12 week wait list. So it's quite common for that to happen, but it takes all three of these pieces to get your practice to that level. So your homework right here is, what is your vision for your future practice? If you take everything that we did today, what's your vision? Who do you want to serve? And do you want to serve them now? Is this something you want to do today, or is it something you want to do far along? What unique skills and talents and interests do you bring to your practice? This is starting to develop your niche. Often we work with a lot of different people, but there's one or two populations that we really dig. Like, I love working with autoimmunity. I like people with complex health problems. Do you want to have long-term patient relationships or short-term relationships? Or do you want short programs with a definitive end date? That's important because that helps define how you're going to work with people. These basic questions start the framework to create your perfect practice transition, and particularly the financial transition. And so if you go and do this right now, don't leave this seminar and go, you know what, I'm going to go hang out and I'll do this maybe at lunch tomorrow. Because what will happen is, guess what, you'll get back into your old rut, and then another month will go by, and you'll still be wondering what I need to do next. So do that immediately after you watch this webinar, after you email Jenny. So again, here's your opportunity. We're offering this for the next 7 days. You have an opportunity for a private one-on-one session. And in that session, we're going to really talk about whatever your most pressing concern is. When you email Jenny at functionalmedicinebusiness.com, we're going to send you a questionnaire. And in that questionnaire, it's going to help you kind of get your thoughts together so you can have a cohesive conversation about where you're stuck. right? And in that conversation, we're going to walk you through all the things you need to do. So you're going to walk away with a plan and some action. So it's not like you're just going to talk about theories. You're going to get important, valuable information. So at the end of that call, if it makes sense, we'll talk about what we're offering. That's it. No pressure, whatever, right? So if it's not something that sounds right for you, that's great, that's fine. We love giving value, and we want to be able to help you move forward. And we do guarantee that you're going to walk away from our time together with something really valuable. So it's really time to take your practice to the next level. So if you're ready to do that and you don't know what to do, the next thing you want to do is email Jenny at functionalmedicinebusiness.com and do that now, because again, this is only available for the next 7 days. We can't leave this open indefinitely because we don't have that kind of time. We want to make sure we're servicing people who are available and ready to go, and we want that to be you, but you have to be there and have to be ready. You can also, if you don't like technology and hate email, you can also call 972-246-8824, and we'll get on the phone with you and chat and just talk about what your opportunities are. So we want to thank you very much from the bottom of our heart for spending time with us today. I hope you found value in this conversation, and we hope to see you at a Perfect Practice. Have a healthy and happy day.